Hey, how's it going? Sportsman 2 heads. In this video, I'm going to show you the sets I have, tell you what I know about them, and give you my opinion. Okay, let's get started. The Sportsman 2 head has been around for a while. They've gone through many reversions over the years, and they're an okay head. They're kind of they've been widely accepted into like oval track racing, kind of a rule racing head. More of a stock heavy duty replacement. Not so much ideal for performance. There are better cast iron heads out there. Probably a little cheaper too. They're a decent head. Horsepower wise, out of the box, they'll probably support around 400-ish. Well, they will. I've done about 400-ish on them. And with mild work, maybe 500-ish. And I know of a few cases where fully ported by a pro, they will achieve 600-ish horsepower. So, not bad. They're pretty good. But there are better cast iron heads these days. For one, Vortex. Vortex heads are pretty good if you can find a set that's not cracked. They're better low end, better mid range, and that's my own personal experience. When I did one engine, the only change was the heads. Vortex versus some out of the box Sportsman 2s. So your experience may vary, different cams, different cars, and so on. That's my experience with them. They have a large 200cc runner, and that's partially why they don't have as much low or mid-range. But maybe if you're a drag racer or, even old track, I guess, if you're going to operate between 3,000 and say like maybe 7,000, maybe they're better. They'll have a little bit of advantage over the Vortex. I'm not an expert. I'll leave that to the oval track guys. There are other heads, in my opinion, that will do better all around. Will do the same things as the Sportsman, which they're known for, like the thicker, heavy castings, and, good things. Anyways, let me show you what I got. Over here I have 4 different heads from 4 different sets of Sportsman 2s. Now, this set right here is my newest set. And the date in the boxes was around 2015 something. So they're the newest casting, newest versions I have. And this set I bought used, and I've used it on actually 3 engines, which is on my little note up there. But my point is, I bought these used back around 2000-ish. Maybe late 90s, maybe early 2000s. I don't exactly remember. But I've had them for quite a while and used them plenty. And these ones are kind of pretty much out of the box. So they're stock. Nothing's been done to them, really. We'll get to that later. These heads I got with an engine I bought. I bought a short block. I went to buy the short block. He had a bunch of other stuff. He threw in these heads. So they're essentially free. And they're an older version than these heads. There's a few different ways you can tell, and that's on the note. We'll get to that later. These heads are technically maybe Dart 2s. They're the oldest version. So who knows when they are. The heads have been around, I want to say, since early 80s, maybe late 70s. Someone can comment if they know. But they've been around for quite a while, these heads. So, to start off, we'll talk about the Dart version here. You see my note? Well, the obvious thing is, these heads do not have a raised rail for the valve covers, like all the other heads. You can see right here, a little bit of extra meat. To help the valve cover seal better and for other reasons. Just a nice aftermarket feature. It's very common on aftermarket heads, and obviously they didn't include it. This head is more closer to a OEM head with a lower valve cover rail, the older OEM heads, and it looks somewhat on the front. Whereas all these other heads, look pretty much aftermarket. And the newest version has actually World products on there. Or World, you get what I'm saying. So, yeah. Another good feature, another thing I want to mention, not feature, I want to mention about these heads, is they all came with about 3/8 NTP side port plugs for the sensors or whatever. I actually enlarged these ones. These ones came enlarged, and I enlarged these ones as well. I used a kit I got off Amazon here or eBay, I can't remember which, just a drill and tap 1/2 inch NTP. So I think it was about 15 bucks. I'll include the link in the description. As always. Back to the heads. So, let me check my note. Start off with these heads, I bought them used as well for about 300 bucks just to practice porting on. I wasn't really planning on, going, all out with them. But in the end, I've gone through so many porting reversions that now they're pretty much a fully ported head. They started off really bad casting flash. I mean, I've always heard stories of the Sportsman 2s having horrible casting flash. And these ones are not that bad, the other 3 sets, but this one was freaking horrible. I mean, it was thick. It was crusty, and you just had to knock all that out, and then you could actually do stuff. And just knocking that out, I want to say it was like 1/8 inch thick almost. I mean, it was thick. It was nasty, and it was everywhere. Another thing about this set of heads is the intake ports had a little bit of core shift on 2 pairs of runners on each head. And on one other head, I don't know if it was this head or the other head, all 4 exhaust ports on the short side radius, it was practically right angle. I mean, it was bad. I had to reshape all 4 exhaust port short side radiuses to make it similar to the other head. It was a lot of work. So I have a ton of time into this set of heads. And I mean, partially because I was learning here and there, and I started porting these heads years ago. I mean, so it's just as I learned stuff, I tried new things on them, and I think they turned out pretty decent. Probably a little big for my current projects, so we'll see when I actually use them. But they were worth it for the learning experience. According to my notes, another key thing about these heads is the oldest version, they had throats, if you know what I'm talking about, in here, right in the throat area. They were really small. The throats were about 73, 74%. And that's nowhere close to ideal, even for mild performance. So, I mean, they really had to be opened up. Let's see. The chambers also, if you compare them to a newer set of heads, they needed a lot of work. I mean, they look pretty similar right now, but these chambers were really they needed a lot of shaping in here. It was a ton of work, but they're there now. Anyways, let's move on to the next set. Okay, this set of heads, the ones I got in a trade, they actually had the biggest chambers out of all 4 sets. I believe these 2 I know are 64cc. I still haven't CC'd these because I reshaped them, so I don't know. But these heads were all CC'd and mapped out by the guy before me, and they were 72cc to 74 to start. They've been surfaced. I've massaged the chambers a little bit, so they're probably still about 72-ish, 74-ish, kind of big chambers. These heads are also angle plugs. The only set I had is angle plugs. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, the exhaust ports in these ones, I can tell these are another older version, older than this set, is the exhaust ports were a lot smaller. I had to reshape them to get them similar to these newer sets. So I mean, that was quite a bit more work, but got it done. And they were stealth ported. Until, I didn't know when I bought them, but when I tore them apart, you could tell in here, they've been mildly ported since, so you can't see it anymore. But in here, they were obviously stealth ported, where they try to port them and hide it, but not really. Like when you stealth port, you use kind of an acid. I can't remember which one it was, Muric or something else. I think it was Muric. to try and give it a casting-like appearance, and it's, you know, it was still very apparent that someone had reshaped things in there. So it was poorly stuff-ported, and that's why they were for sale. They didn't pass some rules. You know, someone bounced them because it was obvious if you knew what Sportsman 2 heads looked like. Like, for example, on these heads, bad example because it's all slitted up. You can see they have huge guide bosses, huge, compared to the ones I've reshaped here or over here. Or even these Vortex ones over here. Pull the valve out real quick. See? So, notorious for having huge guide bosses and needing lots of work, Sportsman 2 heads. That pretty much sums up for this set. Let's move on to this set. Okay. As I mentioned, this set I've had 2 different engines, 3 different vehicles. I actually threw them in the corner of the garage. They all rusted up the last time. And I said, you know what, I don't have any heads. I wire wheeled them off. Actually, no, I think I used one of these, you know, those no-no discs. Where is it? Yeah, one of these. Use one of those no-no discs to get the grit in your engine and clean them up. Threw them on with some of those blue Felpro gaskets and had no issues. Ran them for years. I mean, not a ton of miles, but if I had to estimate somewhere between 300 and 400 passes, you know, test passes and actual drag races, and that's a lot of use. I mean, it wasn't a high output engine. The engine with the ETAs estimated about 370-ish horsepower, you know, upper 370s. So, not bad. But let's see what else we got here. Oh, one thing I noticed on these heads is that I would say like they're out of the box, but I believe the guy who I bought them off had a valve drop, and the valves appear to be a little sunk on them. If you know anything about flow, that's not exactly ideal to have your valve sunk, from what I hear. Otherwise, these heads are pretty much stock. As they come, out of the box, big old huge guide bosses, whereas like this other set here, I've cut them down for locators. And another thing I forgot to mention, this set of head, I mildly ported it, and they have been, you know, I kind of debated about it, and the last minute someone convinced me, and I got new guides, a valve job, and had them surfaced. But the machine shop screwed up the exhaust guides. They made them too tight, and I think I got a picture of that, so I'll throw that in here.
On the left is the exhaust valve. You can pretty much see the bronze guide liner oozing out of the valve seal and all over the valve spring locator. All 8 exhaust valves look like this. On the right is an intake valve. Even though it looks fine, it is not. I had them checked by another machine shop, and they're actually hourglass shaped. It means they're fine in the center, but tapered on either end. Basically, everything has to be redone. New guide liners, new valve job, all of it. Everything was checked, retainer to seal, coil bind, rocker geometry, it was all fine. They even had my brand new Manley valves when machining the heads.
Long story short, I don't want to ramble on. They only lasted 2 hours before I noticed there was all kinds of shavings. I talked to the machine shop, they told me to pull them off, I took them in, they told me, oh, they're almost wore out, but not just wore out, and we're not going to do nothing about it. So I wasted my time, wasted, you know, a lot of resources, decided it wasn't worth putting them back on because they might, if I'd have ran them for 3 hours, they probably wore out. So I mean, it was a real all-around bad experience, and I'm just really bummed out on it, and I kind of set them in the corner and was like, forget them for now, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't want to put more money into them and fix them. The cheaper solution was to buy some eBay aluminum heads, which I made a video about that, than actually fix these heads. You know, we'll maybe talk about that some other later. I don't want to get into that. That's a sore spot still. Anyways, on to the new heads. This set, I got a killer deal on. Otherwise, I don't really recommend buying Sportsman 2 heads new unless you really need to, you know, for your type of racing, if it's required by rules. You know, or allowed by rules. If this, you can use these heads or something else, because they're kind of pricey. This set I got on eBay for pretty much 2 for 1. It was a good deal, and it was even the cheapest 2 for 1. The cheapest single price head compared to the other heads, and I got 2 for 1. So it's, I was like, why not? I like the heads. I've used them before. I've learned how to port them. Why not? But there's always a but when you get a good deal. The problem I later found was the spark plug protrudes slightly into the chamber. And it's not ideal to have your threads exposed in the chamber. The solution to fix that is, you see it's fixed down here, is using a indexing shim, washer, whatever you want to call it. See right here, just goes over the plug. Here's one without, here's one with. The different coatings, I threw it on the black one so you can see it better, the shim right there. Both Autolite 26s. And here's a pack of the shims. I'll include the part number in the description, Moroso. There's 3 different sizes. And I think I'm using the in-between size, but it just gets me there. It's debatable whether you should use the indexing washers or not. Some people say it affects the heat dissipation of the spark plug. I don't know. The other option is to take that thread off the plug, and I don't really want to do that. But so we'll give this a shot when I run these heads. But so far, when I looked over this newest version of heads, they're way better. They got the best throats. You can look in this untouched version over here and see that there's more of an aggressive lip, I think, than these heads. So, yeah, pretty much the same. Huge guy bosses. But looking overall, the runners and everything, they're slightly better, slightly revamped, a little less work to make these heads awesome. So, what else? Looks at the plugs. Oh, the plug position has been moved in these heads, so they may require a little less timing. See, on this set, we'll turn them all around so you can see all of them. On this set, the spark plug is more offset to the intake side. On this set, it's more right between the valves. So they shifted it to the exhaust valve, and what that's going to do is make the plug probably a little hotter. So you're going to have to run maybe a couple of degrees less of timing. Similar to actually these Vortec heads over here. The plug is set more towards central, and Vortec heads are notorious for needing a little less timing, so just FYI. That's my opinion on that. What else? So, plugs, throats, position. Now, there is some in here. You can see where there's a little bit of overhang. That's just part of cleaning up the chambers. You can see there's a little bit over there. And here's one I've done. And here's these ones I've done. Actually, I think these plugs, that one might have a washer on it. That's why it's not in all the way. I don't know. I just threw some plugs in just so I could demonstrate. You can see the angle plug over here. Also pointed towards the exhaust. I don't know. Some people say that's for clearance. Some people say it's for whatever. Other people say it doesn't really affect things until you get into higher compression. It is what it is. I was just going to use them on a car that I was already using manifolds on, so it wasn't a big deal. But then those manifolds didn't work, and so I had to change the ram horn manifolds. And long story short, I didn't use the head, so it was a lot of work for nothing. I don't know. Anyways, I'm rambling on. Those are the heads I got. 4 sets, 4 versions. Forgot to mention a few things when I was rambling on, so I'll just throw this clip in wherever it fits when I edit. When IDing Sportsman 2 heads, they have a I-037 casting mark. Right there, right there, right there, and not there because I ground these heads smooth. Also, I want to point out that some heads have a step for the valve springs. Some do not. So, these ones do, these ones do not. Another thing is center bolt valve covers, which probably helps date these heads, because I want to say OEM did around 87 or so. That's when they started doing the center bolt valve covers. And the oldest version does not, but the other three, they all do. Next is the push rod holes. If you're going to run 1/6 rockers or high ratio, or maybe some cams with some combos, you're going to want to open up the push rod holes, like on this set over here and this set over here, just so they don't hit and rub. And that's it. Good stuff. Let's see. So, should you buy Sportsman 2 heads? I don't know. They're decent heads. You can make okay power with them. If you want to have that low end grunt mid range, unless you got the cubes, probably not. You know, they're a good solid head, so if you're going to push it, they're probably not going to crack as easy as stock heads. I mean, they're definitely not going to crack as easy as stock heads. I mean, but I feel there are better alternative aftermarket cast iron heads if you want to go with the weight offset. I kind of like the idea of a cast iron head for certain applications because they're stiff. They hold their head gasket seal a little better. Maybe, kind of, my opinion, girdle the block a little better. So if you have, an OEM block, maybe. I don't know. That's just my opinion. If you have any other Sportsman 2 information, let us know. Leave a comment. Give us your opinion. This is my opinion of my heads, my experience. So I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Peace out.